Alright guys, so in our last class, we talked about animating text in Adobe After Effects. Now in this class, we are going to be talking about animating shapes in Adobe After Effects. So the last one was animating this very text, where we show the animation from beginning to the end at this. We put in some pretty nice animations to have it come in and stay on the canvas. But in today's tutorial, we're going to look at animating shapes. Okay, so to animate shapes, we need to create a new composition. We can just start by coming to composition over here and click on create new composition. We just give it a name instead of animating text. Right now, we're going to make it animating shapes. We did enter everything at default. We can just go ahead and put some background to our canvas so that it looks pretty good. Come to the shapes over here and just long press the shape and just take the rectangle tool, and then we can just drag and drop it somewhere here. So we can feel free to change in any color by coming over here to change the fill color. It usually takes in the last color that you've used. So you can change to any color. For example, you can come to something like this. I pretty much like something like this. We can have it as our shape or our background. So we can click out, or we can hit on Ctrl V to come back to the selection tool, and we can move around to make sure that the background is filled completely. All right, so you can see it over here. If you like, you can rename the layer. You can just come over here and right click and say rename, and then you can call it background. All right, so you can click out. Next is we can click out of the background. We can add different shapes. Okay, right now we can come over here and just come to this rectangle, click and hold it, and then we can select, maybe we want to put in ellipse tool. We can do ellipse if you want, okay, as a whole on its own. And usually shapes are usually not making much sense until they have a given color attached to them. So in this one, we don't have any color, so you can come to the fill color and select any color of your choice, and you can see it stands out pretty nice. So this is how to make an ellipse. But if you want to make a circle, perfect circle, you have to hold down the shift key in this case, and then you can draw the circle just like so. Okay, pay attention to the coloration. Okay, right now we can change the fill color at this point. Just make sure that you are on this particular ellipse. Okay, because we are working on the same shape. Okay, you can see we have ellipse 1 and ellipse 2. If we click out of it, then we can draw the shapes independently. So let me give you an example, but let's try to change this color so we can have something much different. Something like this. Things okay. So these are the same ellipse, okay, under the same layer that we just kickstarted. We have ellipse 1 and we have ellipse 2. In each case you select, you'll be able to see the shape highlighted because they are on the same scale. So but if you click out, you can be able to draw a different shape on its own independently. So you can come over here, hold down the shift key, you can draw a polygon tool by just selecting it, and then you can come over here, draw a polygon tool. Like I said, it takes in the color of the last set, and you can see it over here as a new layer. You can right click here and come to rename, and then you can call it the polygon. Okay, actually this is a pentagon, okay, if I get my arithmetics correctly. So this is a pentagon because it had 5 sides to this very shape. Okay, in cases when you want to make it a different number of sides, for example, you want to make it 3 sides, maybe a rectangle or more than that, you can just come over, make sure you are on the polygon or whatever shapes you call it. You can come over here, select it, and then you can come to this small arrow. You can see content. Okay, so usually when you click, you will see polygon. When you come to this small arrow, you can see content, and you click on content, you will see polystar. So you can click on polystar and then come all the way over here to polystar path. Okay, so polystar path will give you the points. Right now it has 5 sides or 5 points, so you can just select, and if you want to make it a triangle, you can just make it 3, and once you hit enter, this is going to be converted to a triangle. Okay, so you have the access to all the other properties like the position. You can move it in the X direction if you want, to as far as you want, and then you can move it in the Y direction as well, as far as you want. So this is basically some of the key properties. You can play around with the rotations as well. You can rotate it along just like so, very nicely done. You can do that. You can play around with the outer radius, okay, increase or decrease the outer radius accordingly, and then you can increase the outer roundness. Okay, so you can play around with the outer roundness as well and have something like this or something like this. So pretty much anything, any shape, you're just free to go come along and play around with the properties and the features over here. So this is the polystar path. You can define anything you want accordingly, and you could put some stroke also if you want. You have the stroke You can add some stroke. For example, you can add the stroke width. Right now it's set to 0. You can increase the stroke width to this much stroke, and you can change the coloration as well from this color, from this white to this red. Okay, you can say okay to this, and you can see it has changed the color. Or you can use the color picker also to pick on any color. You can play around with the opacity of the coloration. You can play around, increase or decrease it accordingly. All right, you can do it from here, or you can do it from the top over here. You can click and add stroke also if you want, but I think I prefer it at white color, and I prefer it without stroke at this point. So you can just zero the stroke width to take it back to the normal shape as it was. So this is how to play around with the features. You can check around the line caps, the dashes. If you want to play around, add some dashes, you can add. You can come down to web, taper, and other field properties over here. So usually there are two transforms. You can close on this and close on the stars. So you can see this is polystar transform, specifically aligned for this polystar, for this shape that we have. And then we have the general transform down here, which we've explained in the previous video, where you can play around with the anchor point. You can play around with the position, global position of this particular shape. Okay, the X and Y coordinates, you can move around and you can scale it up and down accordingly as you so wish. If you like, you can unlink this, so you can scale the X and scale the Y separately as you so wish, or you have them linked and they increase and decrease together. Okay, so it all depends on you. And we have the rotation also at the global scale. So this happens the same way if you have the shapes located under the same shape or the same platform. Okay, so for example, this is our polygon. For example, the other one that we have these two shapes located, you can come over here. You can see the ellipse 1 and ellipse 2. Okay, all on the same features. So each one of them has its own properties. You can see the ellipse 2, you can see the properties, and you can have its own separate transform over here. If you want to scale it up or down, you can play around with it separately. And you have the second one as well. If you want to have its properties, you can have the path. If you want to play around with the path, the sizing, the position, you can see the second one. You can play around with the position in the X and Y coordinates as well. So these are very, very easy features that you can play around and have an understanding of what they do. Okay, so this is the basics of the shapes, how to bring in shapes and play around with their features. So right now, what I want to do is I want us to create a little bit of an intro text for our maybe channel or something. You can just try to create a very simple intro and then have it animate in this very tutorial. Okay, so let's try to hit out and then maybe create something simple. Let's unshow this and unshow these two as well. So let's try to create something simple by just coming over to the shape icon, the polygon icon over here, come to rectangle, and then you can drag it along just like so. You can hit out over here, or you can hit the V icon and have it come back to the selection tool. You can select and center it just like so. If you want to center it, you can center it just like so. So what I want is I can change the coloration of this. You can change it from this color to maybe white color. Okay, so it stands out a little bit. I want to create an animation whereby we can have this shape move from this 0 point, okay, to this much big. Okay, you can just move from this point to this point. So this is the shape that we are working on, this rectangle. Okay, this shape layer 2. So we can just select it, and then hit the scale option, hit the letter S to bring in the scale, like we have explained in the shortcut keys. You can hit the letter S and we have the scale over here, and then you can see we can scale it up. Okay, so we can add the keyframe. At this point, I want it to be 100% or 0. You can start. So let's say we want it to be 0 at this point. So we just start a keyframe and then we define what the keyframe does. So it goes to 100, but this is not what I want. I don't want something like this. I want to unlink them so they work together. Okay, so they pretty much work together. So I bring them back to normal. So let's take it back to normal. And at this point, what I want you to do, I want to unlink this because I want it to move from the sides, not on both sides completely. So I want it to move from 0 to 100. Okay, so I move the playhead to maybe here, and then I give it 100. Okay, can maybe zoom it to 100, and then it zooms out. Okay, so you can see the second keyframe. So we can just, when we come back here, you can see it's going to be something like this, moving all the way to the bigger size. Okay, so we can bring it closer so that it moves pretty much fast. You can see it moves a bit faster. And I don't want something like this. It looks kind of too boring for this to just move fast and stop like that. We need to put some little animations to this. Okay, so let's put in some little animations to this. And how do we do that? We can select the keyframes, right click on them and come to keyframe assistant, and then we can just come to easy ease, and it's going to easy ease all of them instead of the normal straight line that we have, which is something like this. Let's select the keyframes and come and show the velocity graph, the graph editor. You can see it usually moves from this much speed down to 0. We want to put in the easy ease format so that it becomes a little bit more animated. So you just select it and right click, come to keyframe assistant and then easy ease, and you can see the graph. If you go back, it's now moving from 0 to the peak gradually up to the peak, and then move from the peak gradually down to 0. Okay, so you can see that we can make it a bit glaring by just coming over here and shifting it, and we can see it pretty much over here. So this is not actually what I want. I want something that can be a little bit dramatic. It starts, so you can select on this like we've done in the other videos. Select on the right edge over here and just click on this and drag it to the left, and you can see it starts pretty much fast to the top point, which is about 291% per second, and then it moves pretty much down gradually down to 0. Okay, so let's try to have a look based on this graph at the behavior. So you can see the behavior. Okay, it pretty much moves fast at the beginning and then it dies out to 0 gradually. Okay, so this is how to animate this very shape. But to make it more meaningful, we have to add some text to this so that it makes it more meaningful. Okay, so how do we add some text? Usually we do Command T on Mac. So we can enable the text tool, and we can select over here and just type Epic Mentorship, for example, something like this. We can play around with the features, or we can hit out, and then we can have our shape and then move it into the white shape, white color. Okay, so we can use it we can reduce the size from the edges, or we can come over here and reduce the size directly. Okay, so we can increase or decrease the size from this very edge. Okay, and let's say I like it at this point, and then we can change the coloration. Right now you can just use this keyframe to make it black, or you can come over here to the global one and change it to any color of your choice. Let's say I like this color, and we click on OK, and you can see it perfectly. But then we don't want to keep it so boringly available like this. Let's get back to the main tab. You can see at this point, once you click, you can see the text is already there, but I want to kind of animate it also to move along with the text. So let's put on some keyframes to the shape. Now we want to do some opacity keyframe. So we want it to move from 0 opacity to 100. So let's hit on the letter T to bring in opacity as our keyframe. So let's say at this point, we want it to start the opacity at this point. Let's say at this point, we enable the opacity and then we make it at 0. Okay, so at this point, it is 0. Okay, and let's say when we move to close to the end, just about a frame after the end, and then we can give it another opacity. We can zoom this to 100. And it's now full opacity, and then when we try to play it, you can see it's going to move in pretty fast with the opacity. And I think this is kind of nice in terms of the animation. Okay, so you can see it moves pretty fast and nice. Okay, Epic Mentorship, but we can put in some motion blur so that it can give it some more meaning. Okay, make it appear much more nice. You can put in some motion blur from here. You can add it to the scale on the shape. Okay, so you can add some motion blur to it, and it just appears as if it is not a pretty shape until the end. Okay, so you just add a little bit of motion blur, and then we can add some motion blur also to the text. Okay, so it appears a bit nice and fantastic. So let's put in some of the easy ease feature as well, so it also appear a bit animated. So we can come to keyframe assistant and easy ease this as well, and then we can come to this graph and then come over here and drag it to the left. Okay, so it becomes much better. So let's try to play it one more time. You can see it, and I think this kind of looks pretty cool in terms of having an intro on this. But then we can make it much better. Let's try to animate a piece of shape as well to this very text that we've added. But if we have a circle, come into the the canvas and then hit on this our shape and then move out just like so. It just kind of come in from the edge, from the side, and then hit on this and then move out directly. So let's try to do that and see the effect. Okay, so let's click out of the whole thing and then we can come back to the shape over here. We can just select and hold it, and then we can select the ellipse tool. We can come over here. We can just press on the shift key to draw our circle. Okay, perfect circle, something like this. And then we can change the fill color from here to something like a red color. Okay, so a red color can make more sense. Let's say a red color. All right, and say okay to this. And then we can have it animated. So let's remove this graph and then have it come from here. So we can see this is the ellipse. We want to put in the animation. Let's say at this point, we want it to start at this point and then goes out. So let's hit on the letter V to come back to the selection tool, and then we can move it to this point. Want it to come at this point, hit on this point, come from here, hit on this point, and then move out directly, just like so. Okay, so just pay attention to how we are going to do it. So we can select the keyframe, okay, select the shape, and then we can enable the position tool, okay, or the position keyframe. So we hit on letter P to enable position, and we can all the way at this point define the keyframe. We can just hit on the keyframe. But what we want at this point, this shape to do is we want it to start from here, and then we can move a little bit, maybe up to this point, and then we want it to come in, okay, to hit on this point, just like so. It just hit here, and then we move a little bit out again, and then we want it to move out of the frame, just like so. Just move out. Okay, so let's try to play it and see how it's going to look like. At this point, it's going to look a little bit rough, something like this. It's a bit too fast and rough. Okay, so you can play around with it. You get the message, you get the information I'm trying to send. You can just move them around and you can try to move around, something like this. So let's try it. This is a bit fast. Okay, so you can just pretty much play around with it until you get it exactly as you want it. Yeah, something like this. We can slow it down a little bit, and then we can add motion blur to it also. Okay, so let's go to the shape and then add some motion blur. You can see it's blurring a little bit. Okay, so let's say it moves from here, just like so, but we don't want it to be something like this. So let's select the keyframes, come to the graph over here. You can see the behavior. I can come over here, select the keyframes, select all the 3 keyframes, right click and come back to keyframe assistant and then give it an easy ease feature, and then we can come to the graph to see what we have. Okay, so you can see it moves at each point. It moves from 0 to pretty fast to the highest point, then it moves to the 0 point. At this point it comes into 0, and then it moves. Let's try to move it a bit and see how it look. You can see it moves pretty fast until the highest point, then it gets to hit this point at 0, and then it moves fast up to the highest point as well, and then move out slowly, just like so. Okay, so but what we want to pretty much play around with the edges. So we can move this up if you want. We can move this up as well if you want. So we can change the path as it moves. So let's have it move a bit fast and then come down a bit fast as well. So let's try to play it and see. Yeah, I think this is pretty much what I want. Something like this to move a bit faster. Okay, so you can select this and move it inwards to just have it animate a little bit. Okay, so it doesn't move in a linear form. It moves a little bit in a Bezier form. Okay, a little bit Bezier form. So let's go back and try to create a move around with the position so that it just align with our other shape down. So you select all of them and move. So let's try to have it move to play it from the beginning. I think that is pretty much it, and I think I like what I see. So this is basically how to create different kind of animation in shapes. You feel free to just give it a try. This is a lot of information, but you can use it according to your creativity. You can easily use this and then play around with it. Okay, so this concludes it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.